Welcome to Man in America, a voice of reason in a world gone mad. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So when Trump got in, I think a lot of people in this nation thought, hey, great, we're finally on track. We're going to get rid of the IRS. Maybe we're going to end the Fed. We're going to get rid of mRNA and the medicines. And we haven't really seen that stuff happening. There has been some progress. I'm not being a Debbie Downer, but there's been some pretty core things that make me think that we're not really as safe as a country as I would hope, especially if you start getting into the AI and the AI infrastructure and Palantir, and that's a whole other can of worms that are not going to be part of this show today. But one of the things is that I have always been in a lot of my adult life, try to be more prepared minded. Even, say 8 years ago when I was living in a high rise apartment in New York City, which is not a good place to be prepared. Even then I still had a go bag and I had freeze dried meals and all that kind of stuff. It's, now, my wife and I, we live out in the country. We've got about 7 acres. We've got gardens and goats and chickens and lots of food stored and all that kind of good stuff. And I think one of the things I'm seeing that concerns me is I think a lot of Americans have kind of put their feet up a little bit and thought, hey, everything's going to be okay. But if you look at the recent kind of heightened discussions of World War III, the threats of AI, the threats of China. I mean, even just, I think it was last couple of days, the FBI arrested some Chinese nationals that had brought in like some sort of plant-based pathogen that could have disrupted farming. So the bigger picture is that I don't think that we're at a place where we can just relax, that we have to be very mindful about preparedness and self-sufficiency. And I'm still working on my book, and I've been talking about it for a little while now, Prep Like Noah. The book is still it's still underway. It started off as a little ebook, and now it's becoming a much, much bigger project, which we're excited about, but that is going to be coming out this year. So I'll keep you updated on that. But joining me today are two fantastic guys. They're Jordan and Nace Roberts, and they're just good old boys from this rural Oklahoma. And we're going to be getting into their story of going from, running a successful manufacturing business to the pandemic hitting, and how they got into kind of orienting around preparedness in a very serious way. And so we'll be diving into all that and more in today's show. So please enjoy. All right, Mr. Jordan and Nace Roberts, thank you very much for joining us today. You guys are like, I see you too, and all I think is good old American boys. So it's good to have you on.
Thank you for having us.
So I want to start with a little bit of the background of your story. Like, okay, coming from manufacturing, your lifestyle. So you guys are out in kind of rural Oklahoma, living on 4th generation family land. In many ways, I look at you guys as like the real American dream. Like the American dream is not, to me, like suburbia with the white picket fence. It's multi-generational land as your core asset of your family, being passed down, living off the land, farming, working with your hands, manufacturing. So walk us through a little bit of your background, because it's going to really help inform our story, because as we're entering into a time where I'm feeling very unsettled about where things are at right now in this country and around the world in terms of like, where's our future going, taking a look at what I, again, believe is the true core of what America is, and your guys' lifestyle is really important for us in terms of helping people get back to that. So I'll just hand it over to you guys just to tell a little bit of your story.
You want me to start?
If you want to.
So where we started was we had a father and a mother.
Well,
and then, because
really, I did too.
Yeah, so it's kind of confusing nowadays.
Well, that's
yeah. So for really true Americans, that's where we, we've been on the same land for 4 generations.
Yeah,
but it was all mothers and fathers.
Yeah, yeah. But when you go from there, yeah. So what he's saying is that we didn't have 2 dads, I think is what he was saying.
Or two moms.
And but really, our grandpa was actually a farmer, so that's what he did. So we got to help him work the land. He had cattle out here. He was growing tomatoes and just everything that you can think of. So we're out here picking them and pruning them with our grandpa. He was a 6'4" tall guy, getting down there and getting in the dirt. And man, just one of the best men that we've ever known. And my dad, he was in manufacturing, so he started working for people, and he ended up rising up to the ranks. He didn't have a college education, and he ended up splitting off and starting his own manufacturing company, which was out of the back of his garage. and I think
And it was a dirt floor.
it was a dirt floor. There was, I think it was his first house was $11,000. You know, so way back in the day, he built a barn in the back, and he started this little manual machine shop, and he just started drumming up work, and that grew into what we are today, where we do CNCs. He brought us both in. There was actually a time where his tax guy just really boogered things up, and the IRS came in hard and heavy, started making threats saying they were going to take everything, and so he actually brought me and Nace in to come in and help, and just really I ended up becoming like the head mill guy. He ended up becoming the head lathe guy. So we kind of grew up uh, underneath him, learning how to manufacture, and then we took it a step further where we started learning how to program. So now we do all of our own programming in house, um, and it. Anyways, I think jump forward. Dad was like always a sensitive guy, and he always knew that. I guess more like sensitive to the Holy Spirit, and he always knew that something was coming. Hey, we needed to prepare, right? And we needed to start doing something. Unfortunately, he got sick with stage 4 stomach cancer. What was it, 13 years ago? Now,
12 years. Yeah.
12 years ago now. And so that was a very quick process where we had to go from being the guys in the shop to being the guys in the office, being the face of the company, and learning all the things that Dad was taking care of, right? And he always had he had this famous quote was, we can always do it someday, right? And so there's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, but there's unfortunately not a someday. So sometimes, like when we have that motto, things don't get done because we're thinking, hey, we always have tomorrow. We can always get things done. And so the things that he wanted to get done didn't get done, but he left us with the resources that allowed us to start doing those things. So when we go to the global pandemic, 2 weeks to slow the curve, and we're in Costco or wherever no one can find toilet paper. People are fighting people for toilet paper. We're like, Houston, we have a problem. This is not looking good. And so we started doing the thing. We started buying deep freezers. We started buying anything we could put in them. It was just a mad dash to grab calories and whatever, right? and
Yeah, I remember at that time going to Costco early on, and you get their ground beef. It came in like sheets. Like you get like a pack of like 8 1-pound things all connected, and I'm going there just filling my cart with ground beef, thinking, okay, if I can freeze this. I went and got I had like 3 different deep freezers, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm just gonna freeze everything, and this is gonna be the solution. Which I mean, I'm actually still eating some of that beef,
right.
but yeah, so basically, so then you were machinists, and
Right.
you ran a manufacturing company. You know, your dad, you know, he passes, you step in, take much more of the management role of the company instead of the kind of the skilled labor role of the company,
Right.
right? And then, you know, pandemic hit, shook everyone's world upside down, and that's when something clicked in you. So you went through this process of kind of like the mad rush that I think the people that saw it like early on, because I remember like in the very early on of the pandemic, there were people that like Costco wasn't that crazy. Everyone was going for toilet paper. Like you could still go and get a lot of food, and that's what we were doing too. And you could still go get, there'd be pallets of rice and everything, and people are still, you know, out there, they're kind of fighting over Fruit Loops. It's like, well, that's not going to help you very much. So, so what was that transition like when pandemic hit? You guys are problem solvers. Like I know a lot of machinists, you know, I'm not a machinist myself, but like I love building things. I love building a chicken coop or whatever it is I need to do. It's all about problem solving, right? It's like, okay, well, I don't have a 16-foot board for that, but how can I still make do with these 2 8-foot boards and the right kind of brace, right? So
Right.
how did that problem solving then shift into what you saw happening with the world, and how can you protect your families?
So we kind of went after it at a couple different directions. It's how do we create some type of self sustain where we can sustain ourselves on our own property. So we looked at greenhouses and all kinds of stuff like that. So we started manufacturing greenhouses. We actually still can today. It's American made greenhouses is what it is. But we've done some for Pastor Dave Scarlett. We've done stuff for Clay Clark. So we've done a lot of these greenhouses where people are like, hey, it's going to take like 2 years to get me a greenhouse. Can you guys design something and manufacture it for us and put it up? And we're like, yeah, we can do that. The shop was slow at the time because everything going on. We had companies that we had consignment at to where we had hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars of consignment, and they locked us out of the building. Yeah, but they continued to use our product and then continued not to pay us. So we're like, man, this is not looking good, guys. So we went, did greenhouses, we did the whole deep freezer stuff, and then the first power outage, we're like, oh gosh, you got okay. We have another problem now. We don't have enough generators nor enough diesel on hand or gas to sustain this. So we're like,
Yep.
we have to look at this from a different angle, and that's where we started looking at freeze drying.
Yeah, I mean, at that time, you started seeing blackouts on the West Coast. You saw some on the East Coast. You saw the ice storm in Texas.
Right.
And then we were like, oh, that won't happen to me. And all of a sudden, we had a bad storm here. And we are out probably 10 or so days. And if you have a deep freezer, I mean, sometimes that only lasts, what was it?
Like 48
48
hours.
hours.
Yeah.
If you have a free or, regular fridge, 24 hours.
Yeah.
Depends what you have in there. And so we bought all these generators, all the gas. I mean, it was a mad rush. And it's kind of one of the things, as we learned, Dad always said, basically, get her done or gumption. So we grew up kind of like, the Bible always says when we're preaching it to ourselves and our kids is the way you train up your child is the way they won't forget it. They're going to do it. You're planting seeds somehow in their life. So Dad was an entrepreneur in a way. Had a trash business, had a valve business, traded land for all this different stuff. He was adopted, so he never grew up around really good influencers. No social media back then to learn this stuff. He just had that because he came from nothing. So he taught us it's okay to lose stuff. Like, when we go to heaven, you're not taking anything. But what we can do is actually elevate ourselves here, because when we elevate and we have the money or we have the finances or the land, we can actually bless other people. So kind of like I would say now we didn't know what we didn't know, but we also had that seed planted in our life. And so once we saw that power go out here, our neighbors, they're like, we're storing everything in our cellars. Like, what did they do in the old days? Okay, the cellars, the books are gone. Nobody can find what book, like how do you prep the old ways? Using salt or dehydrating your meat with fire. And we started teaching ourselves actually the things that's always been done. Back in the old days, they didn't have the ACs. And we're so spoiled. We forget it's so luxury. It's so convenient, but we forgot about how to actually do it the way Grandpa did it.
Right.
And
I think that's part of the trick is that we're trained and taught, that Amazon Prime 2-day delivery is like the thing. Like we live in this convenient culture, and we can no longer take care of ourselves. It's something that we quickly found out. It's like, man, there was a book that became extremely popular. It's called like The Lost Ways. It's like things that people have done for hundreds of years to take care of themselves and to make sure that their families were surviving, right? And but we came across this technology called freeze drying, and so we bought free freeze dryers for us, and we ended up meeting this rancher that raised the beef the way that we wanted it. Yep, exactly. and so, but it was all organic, grass fed, grass finished, no vaccines, and this was all for us because this is what we wanted to put in our body. And so we ended up getting hooked up with him, and he provided all the beef we needed. Word kind of got around what we were doing, and friends and family and business friends came around and were like, so how do I get you guys to do this for me and my family? And so me and Nace were kind of thinking, it's like, well, I guess we could do that. Maybe we were just thinking about ourselves, but maybe there's a bigger purpose here. Maybe we need to be looking at how we can be helping other people. And so that's how Grid Down Chow Down was born. And so we've been doing that for I don't know how long now.
yeah, going on 2 years. I mean, the way it worked and the way God works, it literally just took off on one day, just boom. I mean, a lot of sales right when we launched it, and we couldn't done it ourselves. And I would say during that point, you don't know what you don't know is all the meat that we bought has a expiration date because there's preservatives in it. And even then we were like, oh, our Roman noodles are going bad.
Yeah.
Or our rice now have little mites in it, like even though we protected it, or the other things that have sugars are, you can't eat them now. You can't consume them now.
So you've heard me talk about macrobiotic seasonal eating, how aligning your diet with the seasons and eating real, local food can transform your health. But what do you do when your body's out of balance? That is where sweet wheat comes in. Sweet wheat is 100% certified organic wheatgrass juice powder, cold juice and freeze dried to retain all the live enzymes and nutrients that your body craves, especially when you're dealing with too much acidity from processed food, sugar, or just stress. Just one scoop gives you the alkalizing power of over 1.5 pounds of vegetables, helping to reduce inflammation, improve digestion, support detox, and balance your body's pH all the way that nature intended. It's vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, and made right here in the good old US of A. So it's safe for all ages, even for kids and pets. You can get sweet wheat from Brightcore for 25% off with the code MANINAMERICA at mybrightcore.com/maninamerica or call 888-575-6488 for up to 50% off and free shipping, but only when you call. And if you want to dive deeper into this topic and understand how sweet wheat supports macrobiotic principles, go watch my recent full interview with the Brightcore founder, Kim Bright. It'll change the way you think about your food. Just click the link below to check it out.
And then Jordan and I were, during that time, COVID, a lot of things were shut down. The biggest things were a lot of people started drinking a lot. So liquor stores were open and people started golfing a lot.
Yeah.
And so we were like, hey, let's start golfing more. And so at that time, we realized we had some injuries. And we're like, how do we prevent this? How do we get better? And then we saw, who's the carnivore guy?
Sean Baker.
Sean Baker.
So we're like realizing and deep diving and kind of going in a rabbit hole about, God created meat for us at the beginning, and then we started eating it and realizing we went on it for like what?
A year.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, and realized our bodies were healing once we weren't using the preservatives, weren't we using the pesticides that are in most vegetables,
The
or most
herbicides,
food.
the pesticides.
The vaccines. And so actually I have a really good verse, and it all started making sense, because then you start tying what we're taught, social media, to what conflicts to the Bible. It doesn't, and then you're like, oh, okay, now there's a bigger agenda. So in 1 Timothy 4:3 in the King James Version, now if you go to the other versions, it just says, it doesn't say the right words. So the King James, it talks about forbidding to marry, which they're doing that. Like, hey, let's marry the same spouse, or you can't.
The same gender. Yeah.
And commanding to abstain from meats. And you're like, oh, that's interesting. And then basically it goes on and on about it. For God created, or for every creature, God is good and nothing to refuse if it is to be received with thanksgiving. So it starts talking about that, and we start communicating. We're like, but we feel so much better when we just eat meat.
Right.
We feel, and then the world saying no, but you're gonna have high cholesterol. And then Sean Baker started doing all these studies, and then Joe Rogan and debunking all this stuff, and then all of a sudden people are getting cured of diabetes, people are getting cured of autoimmunes, Lyme disease. Like, oh, you can't fix that, it's always in your blood. Now people are getting fixed by it because your body's actually self-healing the way it was. So that's kind of where we really start pushing meat, but also how can we conserve it, not only conserve it without anything in it, without vaccines or preservatives, but now we can actually, the way we're doing it, it preserves all the minerals in it, all the iron.
Yeah, all the nutrients, all the vitamins, all that stuff. So when we started freeze drying it, we were like, we're gonna do this raw. It's not gonna be.
We didn't even know about that. That people were having problems doing it.
Yeah, and so we're like, we're gonna do this raw so that we can use it however we want to when we need to use it, right? And I believe that we were the first on the market that was doing it raw. We weren't even trying to be the first at anything. It just so happens that that's just how things were working out at the time. But with how we do it, it'll get a 10 to 15 year shelf life completely raw. So when you rehydrate it, it brings back all the blood, all the fat, everything. And so you can make a medium rare hamburger. You could, just anything. So,
I mean, when we first tried it, I think it's really, when you think about, is it God's plan or not? When we first tried it, everything was like perfect. And then we're like, okay, let's start changing a few different ways and whatever. And then we were like, it wouldn't work. And we started hearing other companies in Texas that were trying it, and it wouldn't work. And we realized the way we did it the first time actually worked. So
Yeah,
it's not just to get a freeze dryer and
I
put meat in it.
yeah, I believe it was divinely inspired the way we did it first. It wasn't because we're smart or intelligent or because we have great beards like you. It was just because God just inspired it. He just poured it out, And so just luckily, just being in his will, things just worked out the way they were supposed to.
So some of this, it's interesting your story, how similar it is to my story, because I went through that same process, and then I ended up getting a freeze dryer, right? But for me, actually, one of the drivers was eggs, because
Okay.
at that time we had like 50 chickens for a family of 3. So
Wow,
we
that's a
were,
lot
we
of
were
eggs.
getting 35, 40 eggs a day, which was like way too many. So I started water glassing, right? Which I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with water glassing eggs.
Yes.
You use a preserving lime, you glass jars. And before I knew it, I had like 5-gallon buckets lined up of like water glassed eggs, but water glassing only has a shelf life of 1 to 2 years or so. And I was thinking, okay, there's got to be a different way. So then I got into freeze drying. But I wanted, before we jump into kind of the specifics of freeze drying, because I definitely want to focus on that. Like taking a step back, like when I look at America, and you guys kind of mentioned the fragility of life, and I brought this book, The Lost Ways, right? Which is interesting. It says the SHTF we all prep for is what folks 150 years ago called daily life. No electrical power, no refrigerators, no internet, no computers, no TV, etc. And that's, I think that's kind of what it is. So one of my I do a lot of work on the property or whatever, and I always got audiobooks and podcasts. And my favorite genre of audiobooks is the kind of the like fiction stories of people living in post-collapse scenarios. Like not like zombie apocalypse, but realistic scenarios of grid down, that kind of stuff happening. Everything okay on your end?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, so make sure. Okay. And so, but one thing you realize is that there's a book called 1 Second After by a guy named William Ford. I'm not sure if you've read it before, but it's about a EMP attack, and
Right.
he uses this analogy, and I thought it was so good. He says basically that like life in America is like it's like a fragile tropical plant living in a greenhouse. It's like that plant can only survive with the perfect conditions, with shelter, with everything. And if there's any one scenario that like prevents that greenhouse from operating, that plant's dead. And I look at America now, like I don't think, and I think it's by design, I don't think our country has ever been in a place where humans have such a poor ability to survive. Like we've never been this vulnerable. Or a lot of people, if they don't get their meds every day, within a week, they're either losing their minds or they're dying, right? A couple of weeks. That's one thing. We've lost the ability. People don't know that, like, oh yeah, like in a collapse scenario, one of the leading causes of death is diarrhea, because everyone starts drinking. They don't have water stored, so they're drinking from the creek. Well, there's a dead cow up the creek, and now they've got a disease, and now they've got parasites, and they're pooping their guts out until they die, right? So, like our country is so fragile. Like so fragile, and I've done a lot of research into this, and even to like the experts say that if there's say a grid down scenario in America, within the first year, between 75 and 90% of all people are dead. Like that's what we've got to. Like we've gotten to a place where, how is it that 100 years ago, if the grid went down, nobody would die, right? Pretty much. Or we may say 150 years ago, like it's like, oh, okay, some houses had electricity, but a lot of them didn't. They just survived. But we've become so dependent on these modern systems that if those modern systems are removed, we have no idea how to survive. Like, don't know how to can, don't know how to preserve meat, don't know how to hunt or trap, don't know how to, go in your backyard and find herbal remedies for sicknesses or any of these things. Like we've become such a fragile country.
Right. I have some numbers here for you. You're talking about 150 years ago. When we do what we do, we're like teaming up with farmers and ranchers for a specific reason, because we know that the food supply chain is actually really fragile, and we actually export out a lot of our, beef and stuff like that to other countries. But
Not us.
not us, no.
The
But
United
I'm
States.
talking about United
Okay.
States, yeah. But when you go back to 1825, okay, there was 72% of the population were farmers and ranchers, and that's about 8.6 million. and 3.4 were not. Let's go to 1875. 58% were farmers and ranchers, and 42% was not. And the population there was 15 million were farmers and ranchers. 1925, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. 41% were farmers and ranchers, and that's 20 million now. And 29.5 was not. 1975, 26% was farmers and ranchers. So we're starting to go down quickly here. Go to 2015, only 12% were farmers and ranchers. That's 19.8 million. And the other 88%, that's 145 million, are not farmers and ranchers at the time. Let's go to 2025. Now, these numbers are pretty impressive. Only 0.7%, only 0.2% of America is now farmers and ranchers. The other 99.8% is not. So when you look at that percentage, it's 0.7 million. And so guess 700,000. Yeah. And then on the non-farmers and ranchers, it's 360 million people. So you got less than 0.2% of American population feeding the other 99.8% of America. That's a fragile place that we shouldn't be at, and that should be scary for people when they look at those numbers. And that's what we see. And so we're like, how do we make sure we have life insurance, we have car insurance, we have all kinds of insurance for the things that we want to protect.
Phone insurance.
Yeah, exactly. iPhone insurance, but we don't have food insurance. The average person has just a couple of days of food in their house. Mm-hmm. And that was including us pre-pandemic until it woke us up. And we're like, Houston, we have a problem. Like, we're not okay right now. Like, we're not in a safe place to take care of our family. And we got to do something about it. And right now, at least we have the opportunity, because the next time something like this happens, we may not get the chance to recover and to do the things we should have been doing.
And I think most, there's a lot of Christians and believers, and it depends on what your doctrine was taught, like whether it's once saved, always saved, or, God will always provide, and there's always a good, a story, I think it was, maybe Grandpa told us, but it was like, there's a flood, and the guys end up going to his roof because there's a flood. And then, somebody comes by,
offers help
in a boat. He says, no, God's going to provide. And so another boat comes by, and and the water's getting higher, and they say, hey, you want some help? He was like, no, God's going to provide. And then so finally he's up to his neck in the water on the roof.
Well, I think there's a helicopter.
The helicopter comes by, and he goes, hey, do you need help? And he goes, no, God's going to provide.
Right.
And so, he dies. And so when he's in heaven, everybody says, what's the first question you're going to ask, God? He goes, God, why didn't you save me? Why didn't you provide? And he goes, I sent help 3 times.
I sent a boat. I sent a helicopter.
But you never took it.
Right.
And I think some people are so naive. They don't really realize what's in front of them, what's happening, because they're going off of emotion and not actually the calling.
And I think for us, one of these things that we're looking at the Bible, whether it be Old Testament, New Testament, especially when you're looking at the New Covenant, there's a couple of things that I'm looking at of God providing there. It's not the Old Testament where God's just raining manna down these days. It's just not. God works differently now because he gave us the authority. But usually when God provides, and especially in the New Testament, he either works with something that you already have, like the fish and the loaves, and he multiplies it, right? Or he gives you a call to action and tells you to go do something. Hey, stretch out your hand. You want to be healed? Stretch out your hand. You want to be healed? Walk to the waters, go wash your eyes. So there's either an action, like a call to action, or he uses something you already have that you're offering up as a sacrifice, or you're offering up for him to multiply. And so that's kind of our mindset is, one, we're gonna do the call to action. We're gonna do the thing that he asked us to do, first of all. And second of all, we're gonna have something on hand that he can use and that he can multiply. And that's basically our mindset, is to have something he can use and to obey what he tells us to do.
And I think what's more important is during the rush in the 2020, we did a lot of things more so out of fear, because it's the first time we've ever been in that situation. And then at some point, me and my wife were like, we can't keep doing this. Spiritually, we didn't feel right. We were like, nope, we're not going to spend any more money. We're going to actually just seek the Spirit. Like, God, what do you want? And I think all of a sudden, when we really surrendered, and we're like, hey, we'll go where you want us to go. We'll move if we got to move. Whatever we got to do, we'll buy or we'll store food if you want us to store food. It was a mind shift because we weren't doing it out of fear. So now when we're doing the meat, it's like we're going to use this, whether it's now, we use it all the time, daily, or we're going to use it in 15 years. And then we were like, since we're not doing it out of fear, I felt like a relief. And that's why we're kind of what we're doing. It's a today thing. It's for, you can use it for your animals. We know what's in it. It's for the future. And also, more importantly, what we had, and I think we sent you guys some of these, but it's salvation tracks. We're like, how do we actually make this a different product?
A different company,
also in alignment with the God's calling, because ultimately it's share His word, share His promises, and but also don't do it out of fear. So that's
yeah. I mean, when we were thinking like, how do we turn this into a kingdom business? Yeah, we're giving people meat, and a really healthy meat, and a really amazing meat. But how do we use this like for His glory later? And it's like we're thinking, it's like, man, there's got to be a way that people can make a decision about Jesus at the end. Like whatever people believe about the Bible, whether there's a pre-trib, mid-trib, whatever the heck, it doesn't really change the fact that Jesus is the only way. And so we're like, the quickest way to a man's heart is his stomach. Dude, like we got to have salvation tracks in these bags, because whenever we're gone, dude, this could reach millions of people, and we're not even here anymore. We're just planting seeds all over the planet right now. So I mean, people like churches have it in their pantries. This is great for disaster relief because it weighs nothing. So I mean, these things, like we're trying to get these things all over the planet. For people to have now, but also for people to have later, whenever they need the answer.
I think the real confirmation of when we did that transition.
Yeah.
I mean, because you don't know what you don't know. There's a lot of times like we've been praying for healing or certain things in our businesses to come to pass. Well, God's a God of yes and amen. But also sometimes it takes time. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it's like, okay, I mean, there's things coming to pass right now, but we've been praying for what? And
a lot of years,
about 2 or 3 years, but then we changed our mindset. We were like, God, thank you for this to come. It's coming. Thank you. Your word isn't, I'm not going to dwell on the same prayers and do it over and over. It's like, no, I'm speaking thanks for it. I'm speaking life already. So as we're doing that, the salvation tracks, we had so many people start calling our call centers. People would talk to us for hours on the call center, and it was all alignment. All over the United States, people would be like, you know why I'm buying this? Because when I'm gone, my house will be the storehouse. People will come to my house, and my neighbors don't know God. My grandson doesn't know God. But if they see this, then they can actually possibly get saved by what they're doing. And we're like, man, this was like, and we started hearing that story after story, and we're like, gosh. And all of it started lining up. A lot of people were doing it not because of fear, but because of
they're investing
of their communities or their neighbors.
Yeah, we actually heard the other day from a guy. He took one of our smaller bags. This is a pound of meat in here, and he sent it to his buddy because he's getting ready to go camping with his kid.
And he's a pastor.
Well, yeah, our buddy is, but his friend is a non.
He was an atheist. Yeah,
yeah, and so he and the guy completely. He didn't even send it to like, hey, I'm gonna silently attack you with the salvation track, but he just sent it just for him to have, And he calls him. He said he had a few choice words. He's are you beep kidding me? And he's like, what? He said, is the meat bad? He said, no, it's the best meat I've ever had. He said, dude. He said, I've been running from God my whole life, and he keeps chasing me. He's like, in the middle of the woods, he comes after me. He said, I just turned my life over to God. And he got saved in the middle of the woods because some freeze-dried meat and a salvation track.
Yep. I mean, he goes, before he opened it, he goes, God, if you're real,
give me a sign.
Give me a sign.
Yeah.
and he opens his meat. And his sign falls out.
Right, exactly.
Like literally as a little postcard that says, here's God.
Right.
So I just said a question. So I think that you two, and I've met you, and we actually, funny enough,
Right.
we were hanging out at Clay Clark's house together, of all places, which was fun. Wild, wild experience. Anything to do with Clay is just kind of like
Right.
unhinged, right? Um, so, but my sense of both of you is that you're very, very, like, very close to God. Like your lives are very aligned around your faith and your mission, which is beyond this world. When you kind of tap into your own intuition and you look around the country right now, what is your feeling? Like, do you think that we're at a place where there's a lot of security, like, or what is your gut telling you if you're sitting down thinking, okay, what's the next 5 years look like? I know,
Right.
no one has a crystal ball, but
Right.
what does your gut tell you where things are at right now?
I think the thing that worries me is that not that Trump is in office at all, but the problem is that I think people are putting too much trust in a man, and they're not really looking at the timeline of the Bible. If you read the Bible at all, there's a lot of things that are happening um, around the world, whether it be AI, whether it be, we're looking at, eventually the collapse of the dollar. People are moving away from the standard of the dollar. People are starting to refuse it, and so I see Christians putting their feet up a little bit. So it's a little concerning because the other team does not do that. They're always on attack mode, and
Mhm.
they're not just attacking one angle; they're attacking every angle simultaneously at the same time. So I think that's a little concerning that people put that much faith in a man because the only man should be Jesus that we put the faith in. The only way to course correct is a turning back to God. That is the only solution here. Whether it puts off, whether the turning back uh, or a revival pushes this out another 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, no one really knows. But the thing is that there's no stopping what's going to come at some point. God's already told us he's coming back. Things are unfortunately going to get worse. And that was even what Trump said. He said, "Hey, listen, this is my plan. Uh, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to get worse before it gets better." And he has no idea on that timeline. And he was like, "Farmers and ranchers, I love you guys. My heart goes out, yada yada, but unfortunately, it's going to get worse before it gets better." I don't know how worse it can get to get rid of that 2% of the American population that's farming and ranching. But if it's going to get worse, it's going to make it extremely difficult to even hang on to that 2% of the population. That's kind of where I'm looking at things. But you got big global events like the red heifers in Israel that are ready for sacrificing. So you got a lot of different angles. I think people need to be a little bit more concerned about not what's in the White House, but prophetically what is happening in the Bible that's aligning
Yeah.
up.
What's happening in God's house?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me personally, you have three groups, um, but for not the first group, but okay, so the first group is demonic, right? The atheists or the non-believers, and they're going to push an agenda no matter what. And I was listening the other day on the radio because sometimes we're always listening. Our own music nowadays. We don't have tape players. We don't have CDs. We don't have to fast forward. It's really easy to do that. And I was like, you know what? Sometimes I just want to support the local radio station. And so I was listening to K Love, no Air One. I was listening to Air One. They're like, I have a question. Like, why is atheists always upset when you talk to God if they don't believe in God? Like, why does that upset them? I'm like, okay, that's a good point. Like, because it doesn't make sense. So you have that type of group that's always pushing an agenda, and for whatever reason, they're atheists, but they're still pushing the evil agenda because they think it's fun to flirt with the fire. Then I think you have the Christians, right? You have the lukewarm Christians. I think those are people that are putting their feet up because now they're comfortable. Their jobs are good.
Right.
They're getting the money back. A guy, like years ago during COVID, they're about to have a baby, and they're living really really well. All of a sudden, they can't make house payments. So I jump in, give them house payments. They're about to have a baby, give them 6 months of diapers. Now they're going to, I would say, I wouldn't say a lukewarm church, but I would say it's just very basic, just scraping the surface. I mean, you might get saved there, but you're not going to actually see the power of the words and the healing that God has for you. Then I think you also see the people, you have another group that everybody can fall into it, is almost a revival that's happening. So COVID wasn't just United States; it was worldwide. So what's weird to me, and it's kind of alarming, now you have people across the whole world that are praising Trump. Okay, talks about the Bible, one world government. Who is that person? What could lead to that? Not it's a certain person, but we don't know. But now I'm thinking, oh, now there's possibilities. Okay, one world currencies, whatever that might be. The other day, I was at a gas station yesterday, and the Wi-Fi goes down. We think Wi-Fi is infinite; it's always there. But when it goes down, you can't use credit cards. So everybody in the store can't buy nothing because there's no Wi-Fi. You can only buy it if you have cash. When nobody carries cash.
Nobody carries cash no more.
Nobody carries cash. So I think you have others. Then you start seeing overseas. We have really, we're friends with Steve Ciccalante. We're friends with, Shuttlesworth. We're friends with, Dr. Rodney Howard Brown. And that was only through COVID. Mm-hmm. And we see the revivals that's happening there across the world.
Millions of people are getting saved right
millions. Now. So I see that revival is happening if you're wanting to step in there. I'm seeing atheists. I'm seeing, now Joe Rogan's attending church regularly. He's a huge, entrepreneur, but you start seeing people switching groups. And I would say, I see people that are atheists, like you said, that one guy, he got saved because now he feels the presence. And then now you have people that are getting lukewarm again, and that's not where you want to be. That's what it says in the Bible. Like
when you look at everything going on now, what are some of your concerns?
How long do you have? Well, yeah, because I'm glad it's fun. It's funny to kind of be the person that gets asked the question because I'm only one asking the question. They go, okay, what's the next question? How do I? Gosh, I mean. Honestly, like I'd probably say my biggest concern, if I was to quantify it, is technocracy, is AI-driven mass surveillance state, social credit system, central bank digital currency, basically being ruled by technology. And what I've seen, is what is it? The road to hell is paved in good intentions. You look at Trump getting in and okay, hey, great. There's this revival of happening of pro-America, God bless America. Trump has his own Bible that he's releasing with Lee Greenwood that they put out. And there's some great stuff happening. But what I also see is a lot of Trojan horses. I see magically the entire lineup of like the big tech CEOs, the Silicon Valley CEOs, all behind Trump now, which, in my own kind of opinion and through my own research, big tech, Silicon Valley is a front for the alphabet agencies, right? Like, Facebook, it wasn't some magical story of this little guy in his garage, that built this massive thing. It's like, no, it was a government, before that, it was a government, kind of operation. I think it was a DARPA operation. It was called LifeLog that, gets shut down the very day that Facebook started. So I think that what we've been sold is all of these unicorn tech companies, which actually I think are part of this massive deep state apparatus to collect our data and use it against us, right? And then bring in AI and to build a control grid. So that's one of the big things I see. I'm very concerned about the poisoning and the genetic modification of the human race. Whether what they're spraying in the skies, what they're putting into our food. I think that what they're doing, especially here in America, like with what they've been feeding us, and what they've been injecting into us since childhood, these are things that I believe will be affecting us for generations upon generations. I really, my sense is that it's like in a lot of ways we're living in the days of Noah, right? The other thing is just the division and the amount of evil, and what I'm witnessing is even within, say, the so-called conservative movement, it's now splintered into 1,000 different pieces. There's no cohesion, and there's infighting, and so it just my own sense is and that's just here in America. But the other thing is just how there are so many powerful countries and global entities that want to bring America to its knees. Like how many terror cells are in America right now that came across the border? How many Chinese troops are in America right now waiting for the order? Right, so I feel like we're at Like our country is in the most vulnerable place it's ever been at since the founding of this country. And it's not just limited to our country. I mean, the role that America plays is global. And there's all these different nations around the world looking to America saying, hey, please, can you guys get it right? Can you please get it right and help us? Because these countries are, like, look at Europe. Like, Europe is gone, right? Like, if you're a straight white male, you're a minority in almost all places in Europe now. By design, right? This is absolutely by design. Here's the hard truth. Every 6 years, your dollar loses half its buying power. That means a $100,000 savings account today could feel like $50,000 by 2031. And you see it every time you fill up your tank, buy groceries, or pay the bills. Prices are up. Your dollar's down. But there's a simple way to protect the value of your savings with something real, something proven: gold. An asset that holds its value over time. And that's why I trust Noble Gold Investments. They make it simple to protect your savings with physical gold or silver. No high-pressure sales, no call centers, just honest guidance, one-on-one support, and transparent pricing. And right now, when you open a qualified account, Noble Gold will send you a free 10-ounce silver American flag bar as a thank you. So head over to goldwithseth.com or call 626-654-1906 today to learn more. Again, that's goldwithseth.com or 626-654-1906. Don't just protect your wealth, preserve its power. Yes, there's a lot. There's a lot that concerns me. That's for sure. I mean, like I was saying,
I was gonna say you said a lot there, and I don't think people even picked up on half of it. I mean, it is when you talk about you're talking about a beast system being set up. I mean, when the Antichrist comes in, the beast system isn't going to be invented by him. It's going to already be laid in place, and they just pull the trigger. When you talk about genetic modification of the human race, I mean, this is not a new thing. When you go back to Genesis 6, when the sons of God, the angels, the fallen angels, started making basically genetic hybrids, which were the Nephilim, right? But the whole thing there was to stop God's plan from happening, and it was all designed to separate. Because when you genetically modify them, they didn't have a place in God's world, and so basically what happened is He wiped out the entire planet to get rid of those hybrids, so that eventually Jesus could come through, from the line of Noah, all the way from David and all that. I mean, there's a long journey to get there, but they were trying to stop God's plan from happening through genetic modification of the human race to get rid of the Adamic seed, so the original seed of Adam. And so even today, you have to look at that and think, like the Bible says, there's nothing new under the sun. And so they're still playing the same game they've been playing all the way back from Genesis 6. They're just doing it slightly different through pharmakia and all kinds of other things, through it. But it's still designed to separate us from the Creator. And that's always been the plan, is to either distract us, destroy us, or separate us. If they can keep us distracted, they just keep us out of the will of God. If we're too busy watching football or in the NBA playoffs to see what's happening, what's coming this way and what's coming this way, what's coming from behind us, then they're doing the thing that they're being successful. So you said a lot there. I actually have a friend in Canada, and he got stuck in Canada during the pandemic. They couldn't leave. He's a big YouTuber, and he's a great guy. And he was telling me that, hey, they just did this thing in Canada where any foreign nations, if they buy companies here or whatever, they have the right to protect their investment. I go, what exactly are you talking about? And he said, well, China, the CCP has bought some massive companies up here in Canada. I said, are you telling me they have troops on the ground? He goes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. I said, oh, geez. Okay, so they're buying, corporations or companies up there, and then they have the legal right to protect their investment. It just puts us just put them to the north of us.
Exactly. So I want to hone in on go back to the beef and freeze drying, because kind of finish my story about the eggs. What I came to the conclusion of is that the only way I can possibly preserve all these eggs was freeze drying. So I went out, I got a Harvest Right freeze dryer,
right,
and I could I started freeze drying my own eggs, which was great. But then I realized I was like, oh, I've got, like, I don't know, 200 pounds of beef, right? Of just ground beef that maybe it was 300 pounds. We bought a bunch of beef, right? And I'm thinking, well, this, like, what happens if the power goes out long term? This is all waste, right? It's going to be full of maggots in a week. And so I actually started freeze drying my own beef, right? It started, I was like, oh, at first I was cooking it up, and I was like, well, I wonder if I could do it raw. And I went and found some videos on it. I was like, oh, actually, you can freeze dry beef raw, and it lasts like over a decade, shelf stable in my basement, like in a Mylar bag with an oxygen packet, or it's like, oh, like that to me it was like sorcery almost, right? It's like like modern day alchemy, that you can put something in this machine, it comes out with this stuff that will like last for a really, really long time. So walk us through like how you guys went from doing this for your friends and your family and your neighbors and everything to where you're at now, with which, as I understand it, like there's a lot of different prepared food companies, right? Like I work with Heaven's Harvest. I love those guys. They're great people. And they've got like their protein packs, which are good. A lot of people, they have like the food buckets, which a lot of food buckets are actually junk. They're actually Kool-Aid and pudding mixes that jack up the calories, and like, oh, the price per calorie is so inexpensive. It's like, well, yeah, because you're getting junk. And people think, well, at least it's some calorie. It's like, well, if you're living in like a grid down scenario or some sort of disaster scenario, that's when nutrition is the most important. Like right now, if you're eating junk food, you can access and you can go to the gym and you can do things to balance it out. But if you're in survival mode and you're working your property, 8 hours a day, and you're walking to haul water, you don't need Kool-Aid and pudding. Like you need good protein and good sustenance. So I like, as far as I know, you guys are the only guys that have really pioneered specifically figuring out how to create shelf-stable protein, which is infinitely important. So walk us through just like what your operation looks like and what you do and why your products are so important for people in terms of preparedness.
So everything we do is fresh. So we're not keeping a ton of this on the shelf, just burning up the shelf life. So when people order, I mean, we're in the process of manufacturing it every day, always. But our goal isn't to just have a ton of it on the shelf and burn up shelf life. Our goal is to give you fresh product every time you receive it. Um, I previously mentioned that it's grass-fed, grass-finished. The reason why we did that for us as a healthy thing, has no antibiotics, no preservatives, no vaccines or anything like that. When you do grass-fed, grass-finished, your omega-3s and your omega-6s are a 1-to-1 ratio. One, you could look at it in this way. Now, I'm not a doctor, but this is what doctors have told me. This is what some really smart ranchers have told me, that 1-to-1 ratio is important because it kind of keeps the blood thickening and the blood thinning agent together, kind of keeps it, and then, but once you go to grass-fed, grain-finished, and there's a limit of how long that they can grain finish these cows because they'll destroy them. So, they have to give them like basically Tums and stuff like that, because the acid gets so strong that they just can't handle it anymore. But that omega-3 to omega-6s jump up from a 1-to-20 to a 1-to-50 ratio. And basically the doctors are saying, like, if you have some type of blockage issue, whether it be, in your veins or your heart or your head or whatever, you're talking about like a possible stroke or a possible heart attack once you get those levels out there like that. But they're only allowed to like grain feed these things for like 90 days. Because if you go out to, I believe it's 120 days, there's something catastrophic that happens to their liver. Do you know what it is? Their liver explodes. So we do grass-fed, grass-finished only for us because that's what we want to eat. And right now, our only product is ground beef. So we take the whole cow. So it's the steaks. You got the ribeye, you got the New York strip, you got the filet, you got everything inside that beef. So it's basically a steak burger. So you can make anything you want to, whether it's meatballs, meatloaf, smash burgers, whatever, chili, tacos. So the meat's not predestined for just one product. There's a lot of products out there that we didn't want, and that was already beef crumbles that's already predestined to be on nachos or tacos for the rest of your life. So we wanted something for us. Now we are in the process of doing other things like steaks, which we already have them on hand, eggs, but the thing is that they have to be the best. So we're teaming up and finding the right people in place to make sure that we get the best products. And but yeah, so I don't know if you have anything to fill in on that.
Yeah, so basically, when they do the ground beef, a lot of people, I'm just going to talk. If they buy it at the store, they just think it's, we learned so much through this process. So beef that you buy at the store, no matter if it says grass fed or grass finished, it's usually all the leftover cuts that is thrown away that they don't want to waste, and then they're going to grind it up, double grind, whatever, so it's not hard.
Not only that, it could be from thousands of different animals.
Yeah, not the same animal.
Yeah.
It could be tons of different ones. And so that's what you're kind of getting. So then with us, it is the same cow processed. That's why, I mean, a lot the richness of the taste is there because we're taking all the cuts and putting it in there. So just to clarify, if people just think there's a difference.
Actually, one thing I'll pull up. Sorry, just a little fact here. A McDonald's burger contains DNA from many different cows, not just one. One study found over 1,300 different strains of cow DNA in a single quarter pounder patty. Right? Like that's a problem. If you, it's like, whoa, like how is it that they're getting over 1,000 cow's DNA into one single patty?
Yeah,
That doesn't sound very good.
It's impressive. I mean, that should go in the Guinness Book of World Records or something. But that should be called like the Frankenstein burger. I don't know.
So I know you guys have some there. Do you mind opening a package and like showing like what does it look like? Like how do you reconstitute it? So say it's not even a survival process. Say it's like, oh crap, we're out of beef and we really wanted to make some spaghetti bolognese tonight. And I was like, oh, okay, I got my freeze-dried beef. What does that process look like if you want to take that and cook with it?
So we have different packets, so we have, a smaller packet, which is a pound. We have our bigger packets that are 3 pounds. And these, when you open them up, there is a resealable spot as well. But these are individually packaged in their own Mylar bags. So there'll be 3 of them in here. There's 3 pounds. But basically you just open this up here. And it has a oxygen absorber and a moisture absorber, so that it really helps protect that. Basically, whenever you're talking about preserving food, you have like 3 elements that are going to fight against it. That's moisture, temperature, and light, or and oxygen. So when you remove those things, that's how this thing becomes shelf stable for over a decade. But basically, you would just tear this open. You would take these two patties out. These are 2 half-pound patties. And then you just break them up into, smaller pieces. You'd pour water over it, let it rehydrate, and you're ready to rock and roll. It brings it completely back to life. The blood will be back. And it usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes it could take a little longer. There's no exact science to this part, unfortunately. It will rehydrate when it rehydrates, but it's usually pretty quick. And then you're able to use it just like you would any normal ground beef that you got from the store.
And with this is raw meat.
Right.
It's freeze dried.
Right.
And it's not dehydrated.
It's not jerky.
So there's a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, dehydrated meat. It's like, no, that's totally different processes. Dehydration is usually still requires, most beef jerky at stores are, dehydrated, but they have a lot of preservatives in it.
Right.
And then there's moisture in it, and lots of sugars in there. And so this is actually freeze dried. So the process is getting under, sub levels under tons of different pressure, and then pulling out all the moisture and making it basically there's no moisture in it, so that's what you're adding. So when we say reconstitute, you're just adding back the life to it.
Yeah, and so it says it gives you all the instructions here on the back of the packet. There's even a QR code, so people can just even see a YouTube video just to make it really simple. But it's basically you remove the packets. You break up the contents into bite-sized pieces and add it into the bowl or a plastic bag. You can use the plastic bag that it comes with and add 10 ounces of cool water per pound. Let it sit 10 to 15 minutes or until meat is fully hydrated. And then you typically don't have to drain any water because it completely gets reabsorbed, and then you're ready to go.
And so, okay, I'll put your website here, which is griddownchowdown.com. Let's see. Oh, here we go. So walk us through, like, what is the cost? Do you have subscription stuff? The way I look at this is that there's some people like every month they put money into a 401k, right? Or they'll do
Right.
this. Like to me, like if I have any extra money, say I've got $500 that month, it's like, okay, I can put this towards something useful. It's going to be silver commonly, right? Okay, hey, I'll get 10 more ounces of silver this month, or whatever. I look at this as something where it's like almost like you just put on subscription, like every month you put some away, right? It's like this is just the same way you're saving for your 401k. You guys talked about insurance earlier. Everyone's paying insurance.
Right.
If people are paying even $10 a month for iPhone insurance or Apple Care or whatever it is. Like that's what this is. It's an insurance policy that if things go bad, that you've got this, like, because like what is 200 pounds of shelf stable ground beef worth in a situation where you don't have access to beef anymore? Like you could trade a pound of that for 5 chickens, or I mean, this stuff is it's kind of
all
like
the gold you
it's
want.
gold. You know what I mean? It really is.
Yeah.
And so walk us through the pricing. I know we've got discount codes set for people,
Right.
which I always like to do that for the Made in America listeners. But how much does it cost? How does that cost compare to like once it's reconstituted? Because I know that you say, okay, it's 3 pounds. Is it 3 pounds 3 pounds before the water coming out, or 3 pounds as the solid? Like how's it all break down?
Right. So basically 1 pound is basically 4 servings. And so in our 1 pound bag, it's basically it's 1 pound raw weight. Now it weighs nothing. You can take 24 pounds and it weigh like 6 pounds in your backpack. But so it's 1 pound of actual raw material in here once you rehydrate it. But there's 4 servings in here. In our bigger bag, there's 12 servings. And so the way that it breaks down is that I believe this is $35.
So on the discount, it's usually 45,
Okay.
but we're at 35. And then with
Your
your
discount.
discount, it equals to about $8 a burger
Right. I've
for a
paid-
quarter pound
yeah,
burger, not like
yeah.
a McDonald's burger.
Right. Yeah. Frankenstein burger.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with this, the nice thing is that it's kind of like you said, it is food insurance for maybe an emergency. But what I see is that people are actually investing in their health. And if you look at the ingredients on this thing, it says ingredients. It says beef. It says 90% lean, 10% fat. It's just beef. That's all it is. Grass fed, grass finished beef. There's
So
nothing.
there's no crickets or cricket protein
Yeah, there's no
or
there's
rubber,
no there's no bug protein in there.
3D print meat.
Yeah, and so people are concerned about their health. That's why you have this whole Maha movement right now. And so, if you invest a little bit more in health, you're going to spend a whole lot less at the doctors. And so people see that, wait, so I can set this up on subscription. I don't have to go to the grocery store to get my fresh beef. And no matter how crazy life gets, no matter how many soccer games we have on the weekend, that it's I'm not going to forget about the beef that I need to prepare in my fridge and it's going to go bad. So a lot of people are moving towards this healthy beef. They know what's in it, and more importantly, they know what's not in it. And so they just set this up on subs every month, and it comes fresh to their porch every single month. And they just decide how much they want. And they're taking a certain amount and they're replacing all the beef that they're actually getting at the grocery store because it's valuable to them. And then it saves them time, it saves them money in the long run, and it keeps them healthy. And then they're even putting some back to save for a rainy day. And so people are putting this in their pantries, they're putting it in their basements, they're putting it underneath their beds. It's easy to store. So we thought that this was going to be a doomsday type of a last ditch option product. And really what we've seen is that that's not the case. People are using it for both. They're using it for healthy living lifestyles, and they're using it for food in insurance as well. So that's kind of what we're seeing across the board.
Yeah, and they're also using it for travel when they travel because you can actually take this on the airplane and travel with it and not worry about stuff. You're traveling a lot. When you get to your hotel, you can cook it. Also, you mentioned earlier those, preservative proteins and sugars. The problem is we've heard a lot of people are buying this meat extra because a lot of people they're single, they're widows, whatnot, and then have cats or dogs. So they're like, I want to feed my animal this because they can't eat all this other stuff that's preserved in sugars because they'll die. So now that we're figuring out, people are using it all around. And one thing,
I've actually seen people just feed their dogs this whole thing dry as a treat, and they just love it. But as far as our subs, we have it set up to where however your budget will allow you, that there's going to be a spot available for you, whether it's just 1 pound a month, set it and forget it, or some people are buying a whole lot more than that. People are buying 24 pounds a month.
But also, you forgot to mention, if they're on the subscription, they're automatically getting another % off,
Right,
discounted rate,
Yeah.
and then plus Seth's rate.
Seth's discount,
The best deal we'd like to try to help people is like, hey, we're going to. So when people place orders, and we didn't talk about this earlier, it's fresh. But what does fresh really mean? It means that when we need another cow, when we need another 10 or 20 cows, we're calling them and down the street, a couple of hours away, and they're processing, they're getting the cows in line, and then they're shipping it within, basically 2 to 4 weeks, depends on how many cows are in line at that butcher. So when we get the meat, so subscriptions, what they allows us to do, one, it's not always open. So we can only take so many subscriptions because we want to meet the demand. Because we want to actually deliver a really good quality product.
Fresh product.
Not just about money, but about people's needs.
And the way that works is as we see the demand, we just scale up. So, as we usually send out emails to you and to the subscribers, hey, it's open, whatever. So, but we have this product, and then we also had pre-made hamburger patties that are on subs as well. That way, people were asking, hey, can you make our life a little bit easier? Can you just go ahead and pre-make them into quarter pounders for us? We're like, yeah, we can do that. So we ended up making just hamburger patties, which if you wanted to do the same thing, you could do it with that, or you can already have the pre-made hamburger patties, which is the same price. We didn't charge any extra to do that. But if you're like, hey, I have hamburger patties, but I want to actually make meatloaf or meatballs with it, you can do the same thing because it's just going to rehydrate raw. You can use it however you want to. But those subs are open now. They're ready to rock and roll. But those are limited. So as those get packed out, we might shut that down for a little bit until we scale up for the next level of subs.
That makes perfect sense. So our promo code is Seth, SETH, which is typically what most of the promo codes I have are Seth. They get 10% off. So 10% off whether it's a subscription or it's a regular purchase, right?
Right, both.
Okay. The website, Grid Down, Chow Down. I'll make sure that all these links are in the description, including the promo code for people. And this is, again, to me, this is insurance. This is family insurance. I've been prepping for really the past probably 4 or 5 years. We've been pretty intense on it. We've got 5 gallon. Actually, I exceeded by storage in one location, so I had to get a storage unit somewhere else for all the 5 gallon buckets of rice and beans and stuff. That's so I'm a little bit nuts about it, but it's my life. I live this. So, but for people, I think especially a lot of people that ask me, they're in apartments and they say, look, I don't have a whole lot of room. And if you're looking at calorie density per weight, there's nothing else that I can imagine. Maybe a bottle of olive oil is maybe more calories per weight, but you're not going to be drinking olive oil. That's not going to be helping out with your stomach stuff, I wouldn't imagine. Right. But this is really good for storage, for backpacking. The go bag, this is one of the great things for go bags. It weighs so little. Toss them in there. So again, pull up the website one more time. So griddownchowdown.com. Promo code is Seth. And yeah, I appreciate you guys giving us your time today. I appreciate what you're doing. I love how you've turned this into more of a kingdom business and more mission driven. Any final thoughts as we wrap up? Yeah,
I was going to say we forgot to mention any of your partners or people that listen to you, if they're going to get signed up for a monthly sub, anybody that signs up for 12 servings or more, we give them 1 pound for free. That way they can test that right away. Test it, give it away. If you're wanting to send a sneaky salvation tract to your family member or your neighbor, you can send that 1 pound to them for free. And so that just gives us a way to get you something to where you can test it out, or you can send it to somebody else. So if they order 12 servings or more on the subs, then they immediately get that free pound sent out with them as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. Yeah. Nace, anything final from you?
No, that was great.
Well, thank you for having us on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, but beards are always welcome. So that's
all right.
that's how it works around here. So thank you guys both. Take care and God bless both of you. Do you keep hearing more cases of your friends and family getting a life-threatening diagnosis of cancer? Or perhaps it's even happened to you? Well, The unfortunate reality is that turbo cancer is now a worldwide epidemic. But the question we should all be asking is, what can I do about it? Well, the good news is that there are therapies that are working and proven in thousands of clinical studies. So one study on PubMed found that breast cancer's growth rate dropped by 40% in only 24 hours after using red light therapy. Another study on prostate cancer found that 49% of the over 400 male participants went into remission with just one red light therapy session. A lymphoma cancer pilot study showed that 3 out of 3 of the patients became cancer-free. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. And you can discover all this information and more in a special training program from investigative medical journalist Jonathan Otto, who will show you how you can use red light, including the specific wavelengths as proven by studies, for all different types of cancer, as well as tinnitus, weight loss, wrinkles, acne, dementia, cognitive function, depression, anxiety, long COVID, jab injuries, stem cell regeneration, lower back pain, sciatica, the whole array of autoimmune diseases, including thyroid disease, arthritis, lupus, and gut disorders, and so much more. In fact, you can get your own in-home red light therapy device risk-free, as you're completely covered by a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 3-year warranty. On top of that, we've got financing options so you can get it now and pay later. And the best thing, folks, is that this technology has become amazingly affordable. It's way less than you'd expect, with the smaller units costing only a couple $100. So just go to myredlight.com to make sure you don't miss out this free special training program and claim the extremely limited time bonus gifts and discounts, which include an additional 10% off with the coupon code SETH. Again, go to myredlight.com to get access to the free training. And if you make a purchase, make sure you use a promo code SETH, that's SETH, to get an additional 10% off the already heavily discounted red light therapy products.